Tens, if not hundreds of millions of trees are dying in the United States.
This is the story of the emerald ash borer.
So everyone in my home state of Pennsylvania right now is talking about the spotted lanternfly, but the real crying shame is something else. Take a look here. You can see the trails of the emerald ash borer under the bark of this ash tree. This insect was first discovered in the US in the early 2000s in southeastern Michigan, and it came from somewhere in northeastern Asia, probably from contaminated solid wood packing material on container ships. And now it has successfully killed 100% of the mature ash trees in my area as it continues to spread across the United States. But when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. So myself and other locals are doing the best we can to take advantage of all of these dead ash trees before they all rot away. Many of these trees are no longer lumber quality, so in this video, I'm going to be felling some for firewood production to heat my home this winter. Because this is a firewood tree, I'm going to be cutting it with an open-faced hinge. The advantage of that is that the Hinge Wood, when it closes, won't butt up against itself and kick off the stump, as opposed to a traditional hinge, which doesn't have as much room for the hinge to close. So it's a safer hinge to use. If you're cutting wood that you're planning on making into firewood, it's a better idea to use an open-faced hinge because it's safer and it doesn't matter how long of a pole you get at the end. I'm also going to be cutting this about waist height to fell it, and the reason for that is that it's more comfortable to be cutting at waist height. Now, if this was a saw log and I was going to be milling it, I would use a Humboldt hinge and I'd cut it as low as possible. So that way I could maximize the length of the pole that comes out of this after it's cut. But for firewood, it doesn't matter, so I'm going to use an open-faced hinge.
So what's unique about these ash trees is once they die, they become very brittle, which in turn makes them dangerous and unpredictable to fell. So for this reason, I'm using a technique referred to as a horizontal plunge cut, which basically allows me to get my hinge wood set up before I ever cut out the holding wood in the back, and in turn this allows me to avoid a dangerous situation referred to as a barber chair. So barber chairs typically occur when your hinge wood is too thick, which results in the tree splitting up the pole as it falls, and this can be extremely dangerous. So with ash trees of this size, I like to cut my hinge wood to about 1 inch in thickness.
Now I'm going to drive my plastic wedges in the sides. The reason that I like to use plastic for this is in the event that you cut into one, you don't wreck a chain. I like to use redheads. In my opinion, they're the best wedges that you can buy for plastic wedges. They're super sturdy. I've had these for years and they work great. Now I'm going to drive my wedges and cut my holding wood.
First thing I'm going to do is just draw a line across from wedge to wedge with my chain so I can get an eyeball of how to cut straight. Then I cut my holding wood and exit through my escape route. So the next step in this process involves me using a storyboard, which is basically a pre-cut piece of scrap lumber that's exactly as long as I want my firewood to be. I just work my way down the tree with some sidewalk chalk, marking my cuts. Then I work my way down the tree cutting on the chalk lines, but I only cut about 75% of the way through. Once these cuts are complete, I roll the log over with a cant hook and then complete the cuts on the other side. So I don't own a fancy hydraulic log splitter, so for that reason I currently split all of my wood by hand. In this video, I'm using the 4-pound Fiskars splitting axe, which I must say is a fantastic splitting axe. I'm not sponsored by Fiskars or any affiliated brands, but it is seriously one of the best axes I've ever used. I used to swing a 20-pound monster maul, but since I switched to this axe, my back and energy levels have thanked me because you can swing this thing all day long. So the next step in this process is filling up the truck bed, which the easiest firewood is just like this because you can back the truck directly up to it. Then I'm going to drive it home and stack it. Yes, I did rip my pants while doing this, haha, but at least I had good sturdy underwear for the video. I'm going to stack up this wood under my new wood rack that I made back in February. This wood rack fits about 8 cords, and this is about 1/2 cord that I'm stacking. I'm going to let this wood season and dry for at least a full year before I burn it.
This is ash that's been drying for at least a full year.
Once the ends of your firewood start checking out like this, that's a good sign that you're losing moisture.
You want your firewood below 20% moisture to make more heat and heat your house more efficiently. Now the last step is to carry wood in the house and light your fire.
This is the first fire of the year on September 23rd.
This step is optional, but it's nice to add to the ambiance of the first fire. I'm just cleaning the glass with vinegar and paper towels.
Now I'm going to use some old newspapers.
Once the newspapers are all crumbled, I pull them front towards the air draft and put a small piece of firewood in the back, so that way the schnibbles that I'm putting in next with little pieces of kindling don't get crushed under the bigger logs.
This step is very important, but only for the first fire of the year. Or if you haven't had a fire in a long time, you need to get your draft initiated first. So what I'm doing is taking a singular roll of newspaper and rolling it up like this. Then I'm going to light it and put it back the stovepipe. If you don't do this, you can fill your whole house with smoke. Now I'm just going to sit and wait until this whole roll burns up the stovepipe.